Hey everybody, so we're going to talk about attestations, but we're kind of not going to talk about attestations. We're going to talk about attestations in the context of identity and reputation and that kind of broader space and ideas. So we've got a really interesting lineup for you. So we might just start with some intros. How about that? Maybe we'll start with you, Billy, and work our way down, and you can just say who you are and what you're working on.
Absolutely. Ooh, it works. Nice. Hello, everyone. I am Billy. I am the founder of Intuition. We are kind of like a game theoretic general purpose oracle for information about things, and it's kind of this like big knowledge graph composed of attestations. I'm also an advisor to Consensus, so somewhat affiliated with the whole Consensus ecosystem. So thank you, Consensus, and thank you, Simon, for having me here.
Hey everyone, I'm Kevin from Clique. So we're one of the largest attestation providers right now on Optimism, Consensus, Mento, and a bunch of other chains. But in general, we make like both on-chain and off-chain attestations for user data, right? So we help users to, for example, prove arbitrary data from TLS sessions and bring that on-chain as well as like certain like on-chain data as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Helena. So right now I'm a founder of an early stage identity and reputation project, and that's something that I've been researching for the past like year and something, and also I do DevRel for Web3 security and education.
Hi everyone. My name is Xiangxie from Pad Labs, and yeah, I'm a co-founder of Pad Labs and some kind of cryptographer there. So Pad Labs provide privacy-preserving attestations for all internet data to make them to Web3 or smart contract. So what we're using is something like MPC or interactive zero-knowledge proof things to make it solid. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, personally, having worked with all of you guys on various different projects and stuff, I know this is going to be a really interesting panel. So where I want to start is by, we can talk about attestations because they're kind of a big thing right now. There's a lot of hype around attestations, which are like claims and credentials. And there seems to be generally more awareness now about identity and reputation. So what do you think? Do you think, like, this is an open question to all of you, do you think that identity and reputation now is going to be like, we're going to see a huge new wave of building and new use cases, like the way we saw like an explosion in the NFT space and we had DeFi Summer? Do you think that's likely to happen in the context of identity and reputation? And if so, what do you think is going to drive it?
I can start. I think 100% yes, and I think the identity wave is it's cresting right now, and there's a lot of people all working on this problem. And I've been in crypto for over 10 years, I guess now, and been involved with Ethereum since pretty much the beginning. And I always thought that like identity was going to be the precursor to us doing anything really super interesting, and we kind of circumvented it with like DeFi and NFTs. But once we solve this stuff, we just unlock a whole like host of new use cases and make everything so much easier. And for a long time, we just kind of had to build the infrastructure, and we had to build like the low-level tech to make all this possible. And now I think we've done it. And there's obviously like always going to be work to do, but we have the tools now to do interesting things. People are starting to do interesting things. And so now it's just a matter of like getting more people educated about what's going on, what's already available, and just starting to use these tools for interesting purposes. So I think, yes, unless it's like, the memes are always the things that take off and you can't anticipate the memes. So like maybe it's some meme thing, but if it's not a meme thing, it will be an identity thing.
I think, yeah, I think that's, there's an interesting point that I've read recently that is very relevant to what Shubili said just about the memes. There is a very interesting balance about memes and utility. And sometimes there are projects that are like completely into like meme industry and just doing something fun. And then something that is very util and something that is very like B2B oriented and something that is very important for some particular projects. And then the identity space is something that where we don't have like this balance yet. I think with NFTs, we've had a similar, journey trying to figure out like, are NFTs the memes or like are they utility or what are they? And then right now with the attestations and with the identity, there's quite an interesting exploration about what are the consumers gonna use it for, because we already see, like circling back to your question, Simon, we already see a really great need, a really great demand from the projects and from the dApps and from the protocols to the identity protocols. And basically, we already see a very great demand about, engaging the relevant real users, limiting the CBILs, or at least identifying the CBILs if we are talking about any monetary rewards, or about understanding your users better, understanding the on-chain personalities, understanding the on-chain activity, and then also decomposing on the on-chain activity. But when there's gonna be a lot of consumers to the identity projects, we are probably gonna see a shift into the meme type of things and into the meme side of the spectrum, and we're probably gonna see these use cases and these projects that are right now emerging that are gonna bring something more like engaging for the users, and that are gonna be not for the technology itself, like not for the attestations, but more like for those use cases they're doing and for those like activities they're doing. And probably they're just going to be using attestations because, yeah, that's just a cool infrastructure we finally have. And that's just a cool and easy way to do what you really want to do for your users, no matter if that's an identity protocol or if that's a DeFi protocol or whatever else. You're just using that because you have something great and consumer facing.
Yeah, so I think what excites me more is that we're having much more interoperable standards now for attestations or just for the identity space in general, right? So I mean, Billy has been in the space for a long time, right? But then like back in 2019, 2020, you have like, I don't know, like 200 DID protocols out there, right? Everyone has their own standards for like verifiable credentials, etc. And then for a protocol, or just for like dApp builders to actually integrate with these primitives, right? They have to basically undergo this like super complicated selection process, and then like there's just not a unified interface for you to like access different forms of information that are being provided by different, let's say, issuers or testers, etc. But right now, right, like with on-chain attestations, we've been seeing standards like Werax, like EAS, etc. Just kind of like consolidating, right, around these like standards in particular, right? So it makes it much easier for, let's say, I'm a DeFi app, right? I'm Uniswap. I want to integrate, I want to build a hook around, let's say, you're like proving user like exchange balances or like some on-chain kind of like trading histories, etc. For a loyalty program, right? This information can come from like different testers, right? Can come from like different issuers, but then I just need to integrate with a certain standard for one time, right? So that I think is gonna be the main driver behind a lot of the use cases that's gonna come in the, in this like quote unquote identity season.
Oh yeah, the answer is yeah, it's must have. I think that's why we are here, right? So yeah, for me, I think the identity is the first step for all these kind of what we call data-driven applications in Web3. And I think besides identity, there's a lot of information like from internet, like from traditional Web2, then enables us to bring some kind of diversity of the apps beyond the like DeFi thing, beyond the like NFT things. And actually, that building a very interesting a demo of this Uniswap V4, like some kind of customized hook that you can bring these off-chain like identity attestations to a customer hook, customized a hook that enables you to, for example, someone is KYC verified by a centralized exchange, then they has the ability to do a swap. I think this is the very first step to combine this kind of different informations to enable you to build the interesting Web3 applications, and we can actually bring all this kind of internet data to I don't know, maybe you can use your imagination to building something new or something creative things, not just the things we have now. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's really interesting listening to you guys talk. And so what I'm getting is that like we see that this information is going to, like these technologies are going to open up new diversity of different applications beyond just like financial applications, for example. And maybe like new ways that like to create kind of like more viral or meme-based stuff, like maybe the stuff we've seen on like Tomo Chain, the sort of SocialFi stuff, to make it like more fun, and that maybe will like spur adoption. and that we're going to see like a whole range of different like diversity in different attestations from different sources. And that's something you mentioned, Kevin. Kind of brings me to my next question, which is like, when you talk about these consolidated data sources, whether it's like Verax or EAS or Ceramic or something like that, like what is better? What are the trade-offs between on-chain attestation registries that we've seen a sort of resurgence in lately, and off-chain data stores, or just off-chain peer-to-peer computing? Like, when should you use which, and what's the trade-off? And this is an open question.
So to start off, I guess I think last year like Vitalik has this like paper written called DSOC, right? Like where he's been proposing, I mean like SBTs, which are basically just kind of like similar to like attestations right now, right?
Yeah.
It's just the latter has a much more unified form. And then I think one of the primary trade-offs between like let's say off-chain DID credentials and then like on-chain attestations in that sense is the quote-unquote like unilateral privacy element that your DID systems will have, right? Compared to something like for attestation in general on-chain, right? Like because everything on-chain is directly visible for folks, right? So usually you have like, let's say plain text attestations that can be directly verified by external parties, right? Well, like their on-chain, off-chain counterpart, like you're usually, like basically you need to be online at the same time. When let's say you are communicating with a verifier, right? So you have to like send your, let's say the ID credential to them, and then they're gonna verify that, etc. But of course, like the I guess the pro for this for the off-chain approach is that you have the privacy element there, right? I can selectively disclose certain information based on like requests that are being submitted from let's say different verifiers and then the dApps that are associated with them, right? But even just for that, I think there's ways to do that more in a more programmable fashion on chain, where like you're putting ciphertext instead of like plain text on chain, and then you have like smart contracts to have like custom logic implemented there, where like based on different verifier requests, you maybe you do different forms of like decryption of that data, right? Or maybe it's just a smaller kind of like piece of like registry that contains like like different, let's say, zero-knowledge range proofs, right? Or like, the plain text for this original data, et cetera, based on like different application scenarios, yeah. So I just think like overall, like putting things on chain just make it more, make it easier for like interoperability in general, and then just, interactions with dApps overall.
Okay. Does anyone have a maybe contrarian point of view to that?
I can maybe only add a kind of contrarian point of view that there is an interesting point of discussion to this, considering like whose point of view we are trying to understand. Because if those are the users, probably for the users right now, there is firstly a bit of the marketing approach involved, because for the people, that's not about the on-chain or off-chain attestations. It's more like, what do you communicate to them? But like for the builders, something that is very important is that if it's going to be easy to integrate and if it's going to be easy to build, and that's what we can see at the hackathons also. There's a lot of projects that are trying to, count for the bounties or try out those new technologies that are sponsored in the hackathons, and mostly they're going for the technologies that are either interesting or are simple to integrate and are simple to play with. And then at this point, the on-chain registries, they seem right now more simple for the builders, and that's something that, like the trade-off that we are doing right now, probably that we are doing the on-chain attestations and also projects are integrating on-chain attestations, because that's something that then the builders would be just using. And once it becomes a more widely used technology, once it becomes more familiar to the developers and to the actual community, it's going to be more, it's going to be more simple than to navigate between different types and to choose different types according to the use case itself.
Yeah, actually, just to post a quick kind of like contrarian point myself, I think off-chain verification does have its own merits in terms of like there's a lot of cryptographic primitives that are not being supported by EVM very, very nicely, right? Let's say you want to verify a TE attestation, right? That involves P256 curves, right? For like R1 stuff, right? Like even just like to today, right, you still don't have like that precompile on Ethereum that allows you to do these cryptographic operations cheaply, right? But then off-chain, or just even maybe in a different like VM environment, right? Which in some senses you can also call that like off-chain, right, or whatever, like your layer 2s, your like other like just different modular stacks are built on top of that. Like I think basically having like a separate environment there, like that's gonna be the primary like benefit, right? Like a lot of these operations you can customize to make them much cheaper compared to having to run these verifications directly on Ethereum.
Yeah, we've been thinking about this for, I don't know, 7 years. And like 2016, it was like, basically what it boils down to is you only want to use the chain for what you need to use the chain for. And so like with off-chain stuff, you get cost benefits and you get privacy benefits. And so it's like, okay, back in the day, we're like, let's just store the data off-chain, let's take a hash of it, post that on-chain. Started doing that. And then we're like, do we really need to store the hash on-chain, or can we get away with all of this stuff off-chain? And then we started building all of this infrastructure to handle just like entirely off-chain attestation ecosystem. But then I think there's like a thing that we didn't realize, and there's a lot of like intangible they're kind of tangible, but they're a little bit intangible. There's a lot of benefits to doing things on chain beyond just like, oh, you can just like use the logic in your smart contracts like programmatically, whatever. It's like you get really good developer tooling, and you get like users who are familiar with the UX of like, they probably got MetaMask and they know how to sign transactions, like they know how to do that. And then you get this essence of permanence that we just talked about before. But like, if I receive something on chain, I care about it because it's like forever, kind of like it's kind of immutable. And so like that's why people care about NFTs, because they get an NFT and it's like, oh, this is like mine forever. And that feeling is there for end users. They feel like if they get an on-chain attestation, it's kind of theirs forever. And if you're working with these off-chain attestations, even if it like technically is kind of forever, you don't get that feeling. And so it's kind of this like intangible benefit that comes from the user experience of doing it on-chain, coupled with like just the benefits of just having things on-chain, which there's so many benefits to that. But like if you look at it entirely pragmatically, you could probably do a lot of this stuff entirely off-chain. But I don't know, we flip-flop. We went from entirely on-chain to entirely off-chain, and now I think we're meeting in the middle where there's benefits to both, and so we're doing both.
So you, were you involved in Uport? Or you were in
Me?
consent? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so didn't you guys build like the first like on-chain attestation registry?
Yeah.
The Ethereum claims registry?
Yeah.
Like a decade ago or something?
Yes.
Okay. That's kind of ironic.
I personally won't take any credit for that, but like our team did do that.
And we've come like full circle, which is interesting. And so, okay, I mean, we've got the trade-offs between like what's on chain, it's expensive.
Yeah, maybe I have some kind of views there. So to me, I think the key point or the key difference is that off-chain attestation provide this kind of what we call programmability there. So I think this is the most important thing in this attestation network. Theoretically, actually, you can get everything attested off-chain and like collect all your information locally and maybe in a privacy preserving way, or just plain text. So when you want to connect with some kind of on-chain applications, it has their own logic. It has to provide a way to make it add programmability there. Of course, there is some way to do that, like you are using zero-knowledge proof to do some kind of proof of this statement or logic. And this actually, I think, provided this huge potential for the application layers or for these kind of end users to connect with different kind of applications. I just want to do like attestation for one time maybe, but I can use my information to different applications in a privacy preserving way. So I think the most important thing that when you're doing attestation is, yeah, you have to do it in a privacy preserving way because you are handling private information. So actually that's what we are doing now. And the thing is that you can attest the data, but without seeing anything about it. You just want to make sure that, okay, the data is actually valid, is from something, some kind of server which you can make sure that it's valid, it's correct, it's not kind of random values, then yeah, you can use your imagination to connect with different applications, just maybe using zero knowledge proofs or something more fancy technologies like that, yeah.
And I mean, the technology that like Pado Labs and Clique and some other teams are working on now, where you can basically take any web session or any API call and create a zero knowledge proof and bring that on chain. I'm like hugely bullish on that technology. I think it's amazing. But I still have some questions, right? So like one question I have is in terms of like Sybil resistance, which is probably the biggest use case that everyone's focusing on now. With Sybil resistance, like you can create pretty robust privacy preserving Sybil resistance things, right? But they all have their trade-offs. So for Gitcoin, for example, to get your score, it doesn't really work if you use like a burner wallet for privacy reasons, or if you're just new to Web3. And you know, if you want to use like something that's based on some KYC you've done an exchange, well then, you know, you have to hand over your passport to somebody, and some people don't like doing that. So there's trade-offs with like everything, and you know, whether it's WorldCoin scanning your eyeball, you have to accept some sort of like trade-off. How do you, like for developers, they need to like choose a Sybil resistance mechanism, and they have to choose the respective trade-offs. How do you make it more inclusive? Because if you make it more inclusive and give people optionality to prove their humanity in different ways, they'll likely abuse it and use it to like create Sybils. How do you square that circle?
Well, I think I guess the primary benefit of involving like off-chain data there is that it's just that like you have a much wider range of sources you can pick from, and then you can make these into, let's say, into attestation on-chain, and then you can design some form of algorithm that's, you know, like let's say different for like particular applications, right? Based on the attestations you already have there, so that you can have like much more, you know, just freedom around, you know, these forms of Sybil resistance in general, right? Let's say for like financial applications, that does require, let's say, for you to provide some form of your KYC information, right? In that case, you provide that, right? But then like for maybe social applications or gaming applications where you just need a much weaker Sybil resistance, right? For, you know, like very like vertical specific like reasons, right? Then you can use like different sources and then maybe compose them in that way, right? I think the WorldCoin approach of like using biometrics, that's I mean like definitely like very controversial to a lot of people. But it is, I think for the use case they've been having in their mind, right, which is UBI, it does make sense in some sorts, right, because it's the kind of like least forgeable, just like least forgeable kind of like proof of humanity for each individual. So I think, yeah, having a layer which allows different applications to choose to compose a different set of attestations for their own purposes, for like running these Sybil resistance checks, or even like expanding that, right? You're just trying to determine like whether this particular user has like, let's say, X amount of value to your protocol, right? Like giving this kind of like customization ability to them is, you know, the most I would say like important approach of like solving this problem.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. One quick question I have is that, like, all of these attestations are great, you know. They allow you to do, like, Sybil resistance, and they, like, it's flexible Sybil resistance, and they allow you to build reputation, but, like, you still need those attestations, right? So, like, how do you actually incentivize users to actually create those attestations and put them on chain in the first place?
That's where we come in. Intuition. So that's what I like to say is, okay, we've got all this attestation infrastructure. You can make claims about things, but I don't make claims about things in Web 2. I've never written a Yelp review. I've never written an Amazon review. I've never liked a YouTube video. I click 5 stars on Uber every time because I don't care. And so like those are all claims about things. Now there'll be verifiable claims about things, but I don't do them even when the UX is super nice and easy and I just click the button. So how can we expect people to do it when there's even more friction? And I don't think we can. And if you look at the data, I'm not just a horrible person. I mean, maybe I am, but like 97% of people are also not contributing data to these platforms, even though we all use that data to make decisions every single day. And so it boils down to like, how do you get people to want to express themselves a little bit more in the digital realm? And so I think what we have to do is we have to like figure out what people want. And I view it as like 4 different kind of like incentive pillars that we can pull on to get people to make claims about things. So there's like economic pillar. Some people might care about the money. There's reputational, where maybe people care about the social clout. And then there's like functional, where it's, oh, we're just providing you some utility that solves some pain point in your everyday life. And by doing that, you're creating good data that's now verifiable. And then there's like the educational pillar, which is like some people just want to educate people. And so I oftentimes talk about incentives. It's not just economic incentives, but we need to like get people to want to do these things, because right now, even though the infrastructure exists, no one is going to do it because they don't do it in Web 2. Businesses do it. It's like the US government will use verifiable credentials because it provides some utility to them. Companies in Web 3 are making attestations for Sybil resistance purposes because they want to airdrop tokens to people who are hopefully not bots. And so you complete a quest, you get an attestation, and then you get the airdrop. And so businesses want to make claims about things, but how do we get people to want to make claims about things? And that's my question. That's kind of what we're trying to focus on. And it's kind of hard.
So what's the actual approach that you're trying? You just described the problem.
So, no, that's a great question. So I think you introduce all 4 of those things all at once, and then like each in its own silo is maybe compelling enough to get people to do it. But if you do them all at once, then maybe it like creates a compelling enough system to get people to want to claim things about things.
Yeah, that's where actually there's an interesting insight that I've gotten through talking with different like ecosystems and protocols that are trying to like do the monetary rewards. That actually the question of Sybils is very relevant right now in all of the conversations when we are talking about airdrops, about some rewards, and about engaging the users, because the ecosystems, the protocols, the projects, they really want to have the relevant users just working with their tools, using their products, engaging into their ecosystems, engaging into their communities. And the problem is not that they want to limit the bots, and the problem is not that they want to cut off all of the bots. And that's what all of the representatives of the ecosystems and like protocols that I talked to, they mention. The problem is that they want to somehow encourage the real users. They want to somehow engage the real users. And now basically the point is about those real users and about their drivers, because with the Sybils, we are super clear on their drivers. They are driven by the rewards, and they're coming to the ecosystems for the rewards. And they have such a large spectrum of tools to gain those rewards. And there is such a large spectrum of different methods and tools that you can do to somehow limit them. That, for example, HOP protocol, the DeFi protocol, the tool that they've used, they've basically published a post on their community forum or something that saying that if you are a Sybil, you can attest this, you can tell this to us, and you'll get 50% of the reward. And if you are a Sybil and you won't do this and someone else reports you, they will get your reward and you will be left with no reward. So like protocols are dealing with those problems in their projects with their ways. It's not like they require the attestations, and it's not like the attestations and the identity and reputation is the only way to fix the Sybil problem and like the economic vertical. But then the rest of the verticals is something where the attestations actually make a lot of sense. But there's also the problem with those drivers, because they are being solved by different mechanics, and like the user experience is what really matters, and that's the only thing that matters, because we already have like the reviews in the feedback or the ranking on the upvoting systems, like the DApp list type of things, where they have the dApps and you can upload them, and like they don't have much audience. And I've talked to a bunch of these projects because I'm very interested about these solutions, and what they say is that people are actually not coming for this like value of just engaging into some projects or like upvoting some projects because of like nothing, or because they just wanna bring the public goods. It's more like they have their own drivers, and those drivers are something that is very valuable. And then in these like drivers, that's what we are choosing to kind of try and work with, to kind of try and integrate the attestations as the best solution, or if that's not the best solution, we have to go for some other solutions. And with the CBILS, right now there is a lot of great solutions that do involve the attestations, that don't involve the attestations, and eventually we are discovering ourselves in the space where there is so much more than CBILS. Like CBILS are not the CBILS are not the main problem and the main idea we're talking about when we are trying to understand the identity and reputation ecosystem. That's just something interesting and something relevant to the current state of the market. But that's not gonna last with us for the million years, and there's gonna be so many different solutions to that. So we actually are. We're actually engaging very different users that are super excited about some different drivers and different use cases. And so I do have one great example about the identity and reputation projects that I'm doing right now. So I've talked a lot with the people on Farcaster and on different decentralized social media, and what we've discovered is that there's a lot of on-chain data like attestations and like on-chain data something that you can get. That people are actually kind of tired of that, and they're looking for something more than that. And also, it's a bit annoying when you lack like one transaction to get something or like to complete something. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing something that is more based on the social attestations and on your own attestations about yourself. And we are doing an art project that is incorporating the tarot cards and basically allows to get your opinions about yourself. Like, I think I'm a builder, or I think I am that or those. And to get this personalized card that represents you. And that's something that actually engaged people a lot, because that's something where you kind of see this connection to like something that you know in real life. And I don't know how many of you do know about the tarot cards or are interested about the tarot cards, but my community on Farcaster, especially in the girls Farcaster channel, is super knowledgeable about that. And we see a lot of traction in this, and there is actually a lot of these kind of projects that are not like hyping up right now, and they're not getting like millions of users or like tons of attestations, tons of means on chain, but they are showing us those different ways, and that's where we are going to. That's where I think we are going to see a lot of new, interesting use cases that are emerging right now. That's like the tendency of this ecosystem evolvement, I feel like.
Yeah, those are some of the ideas that I've been looking forward to. Some of the crazy ideas, like I want tarot cards and tarot readings as attestations. That's cool. Just quickly, what do you think are potentially like the biggest challenges or obstacles that we need to fix now moving forward in this space to really grow the space?
Yeah, I do think there is a few challenges for attestation networks. And the first one is decentralization, I think. Yeah, this is, I know everyone working on this space has to answer this question, what about decentralization, right? So yeah, I think that's a good thing. The good thing that we have Verix, and they provide us a new way to handle this problem, because everyone can be the attesters, and if you don't want this attest, they just change another one, and you already have the attestation services from this network. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think we still has to educate all the users to say, okay, so that is safe for you. There's no some kind of one organization control the things. You have to, it's some kind of decentralization there. But yeah, I think that's is the most challenging problem that we have to answer. The second thing is that user cases. I think a lot of people are, collaborators, investors ask you just one question. So what's your use cases?
Yeah.
And
Tarot
we're
card
trying
readings.
try our best to find real use cases there. And I know the most direct thing is to connect with like DeFi things, because for example, providing some kind of new features of these users who has get attested and like provide discount, provide permissions, something like that. But yeah, I personally I believe that there is a big future that we can explore different applications. But at this moment, we have to try our best to find some kind of real applications there. Yeah, I think that's also very important for us. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, just finally, really quickly, quick fire round, and then we'll wrap it up. What are the biggest risks? What's the worst catastrophic thing that could go wrong with what we're hoping will go right, with what we're building at the moment? What do you think is the biggest risk that we need to be mindful of moving forward? Okay.
Black Mirror reputation score. One singular score that is your score for everything. There's no contextual reputation. There's no relative reputation. You just got one score, and everything's based on that score, and that's really scary.
That is quite scary, actually. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would kind of like, that would also be my primary concern. But then just to extend that a little bit, right, let's say like WorldCoins like Warp gets fucked, that as well.
Yeah, I think not being able to balance between the organic need of the Web3 consumers that are coming for the profits and that are coming for the money into the industry, that is like super cool and fine, and between our public goods mission and our vision of trying to do something great to avoid the WorldCoin the narratives and the WorldCoin consequences.
Well, I think the bad thing, maybe the worst thing for us is that the people, maybe end users do not want to use these destination services. I think that's the worst case we have to handle because I heard from a lot of people that the nature of blockchain is that you have to do anything you want, maybe, but for me, for the most maybe large market, you have to make it like compliant for all the users because I think this is how the real world works, and we have to bring it to Web3 because that's the super important thing for us.
Okay. Okay, great. So we're going to leave it at that, but I want to thank my panelists. It's been a really, really interesting conversation. Thank you all so much for all of your insights and for coming today.
Thank you, Simon.